என்னும் மரக்கியை வதைத்து சகட சுபாகுவை கலத்தினில் மடக்கி மாரீச்சனின் கர்ப்பமடக்கி கௌசிக தேசிகனை காத்தவனே அகிலகை சாபமதை தீர்த்தவனே ஜனகனின் சிவதனுசை துடித்தவனே சீதையை மணந்தவனே. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. தந்தையின் சொல்லை மந்திரம் என்று ஜானகியுடனே கானகம் சென்று தம்பி பரதனுக்கு பாதுகை தந்து தந்திரமானை தொடர்பினில் போக முனிவனை போல வந்து ராவணன் சீதையை அபகரிக்க ஜடாயு திசைதனை எடுத்து சொல்ல சீதையை தேடி சென்றவனே. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. துண்டனாக்கினாய் ஆஞ்சநேயனை தோழனாக சுக்ரீவனை ஏற்றாய் மறைந்து நின்று வாலியை கொன்றாய் தாரையின் பூத சரித்திரம் சொன்னாய் அரசனாக செய்தாய் சுக்ரீவனை இளவரசாக்கி வைத்தாய் அங்கதனை ஹனுமனை இலங்கைக்கு அனுப்பி சீதையின் நிலையறிந்தாய். ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. வானர படையுடன் பாலம் அமைத்து விபீஷனுக்கு அபயம் கொடுத்து கோடியரக்கர்களை கொன்று குவித்து கோதண்டத்தை கையில் எடுத்து தசமுகனின் உயிரை ஒழித்து திசையெல்லாம் தீர ஒளி முழங்க அரும் புகழ் சீதையுடன் அயோத்தியா திரும்பிய ஜெயராமா. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய ராஜா ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. ஸ்ரீராம ராம ஜெய சீதா. ஜெய ராம ராம ஜெய சீதா.
Thank you, Shobika. ரொம்ப ரொம்ப அழகாக பாடுனீங்க. நீங்க பாடும்போது அப்படியே ராமர் அப்படியே சிந்திக்க வச்சீங்க, ராமாயணத்தை சிந்திக்க வச்சீங்க. ரொம்ப ரொம்ப thanks. It was a great start for the evening. When Lord Rama's name is interpreted, we learn that the Ramayana is happening in our own body. Ra means light and Ma means within me, in my heart. So Rama means light within me. When we bring the Vedantic teachings of the Ramayana to ourselves, we learn that our soul is Rama, our mind is Sita, our breath or life force, prana, is Hanuman, our awareness is Lakshmana, and our ego is Ravana. When the mind is stolen by the ego, then the soul gets restless. Now the soul cannot reach the mind on its own. It has to take the help of the breath, the prana, by being in awareness. With the help of the prana and awareness, the mind is reunited with the soul and the ego vanishes, says Swami Chinmaya. Now, I would like to introduce Swami Anukulananda ji to give the introductory talk. Swami Anukulananda ji is a chartered accountant by profession who left his career for the service of the Lord and society. Swami is the residential director of Chinmaya International Residential School, zonal director of Chinmaya Schools, All India Chinmaya Yuva Kendra in charge. Swamiji is a very jovial person who imparts his knowledge in a very simple way. On to you, Swamiji.
My pranams to Swami Ramakrishnananji, to Dr. Subramanian Swamy ji, to Brahmachari Vignesh ji, and to Gautami ji. My pranams to all of you and everybody who assembled here. First, I should thank Maulika for speaking in English, because I initially thought I would need to speak in Tamil. Though I love Tamil so much, my ability to speak in Tamil is not so great, and therefore I would try to restrict myself to English. Sorry for that. Swami Chinmayananji said that a country becomes a nation not just when people live together in that place, but when the entire society starts believing in certain values, and those values become the living practice of that society for a long time. And then when that society brings out the fragrance of those values, brings out the glory of those values, then that fragrance and that glory is called culture. So the society becomes a nation not just because of the people, but because of the culture that the people live. So if I have to destroy the nation, what I need to destroy is the culture. Because when we see a land like India having varied climatic conditions, having so many different dresses, having so many different lifestyles according to different places that we live, if there is one factor that brings us all together, that is our culture. Sri Rama lives in every part of our nation as our cultural symbol. As the flag of our culture, Sri Krishna lives in every mind of this nation. And if this nation has to be changed, has to be destroyed, this cultural oneness that we have has to be destroyed, and that will never happen. And therefore, to protect, to learn, and to pass on this great cultural principles that we have is to protect our nation, is to protect our cultural integrity, and that is to protect the true living of what we are as Bharatiyas. And therefore, our rishis, our munis, and all the Mahatmas who lived here, all the great scholars who lived here, have strived to maintain this knowledge and to pass on this knowledge for thousands and thousands of years in this country. Sri Rama is the greatest ideal that we all can even conceive of and think about. Today we read different management texts for running businesses, but that manual for the greatest ideal of living is Sri Rama. Sri Rama is called the Maryada Purushottama, the greatest of person who lived and showed what is the way to live, what is Maryada. Maryada in Tamil would mean respect, but Maryada in Sanskrit means boundary. Anything, or varambu in Tamil, anything that goes beyond the varambu, that goes beyond the boundary, that causes destruction. And thus, Sri Rama showed to us what is the boundary of relationship, what is the boundary of communication, what is the boundary of dharma by which the entire world can be sustained. Sri Rama's message is not the message just for India, it is a message for the whole world. And in today's times, as in every other time, Sri Rama's message is most relevant. And therefore, this knowledge has to be maintained, and thus this program organized by the VHS and by Chinmaya Mission is most appropriate just 2 days before our Ram Navami. Why do we celebrate the birth of Sri Rama? What is celebrated, only that is remembered. All of us remember when Gandhi Jayanti is. All of us remember when Children's Day is, because we celebrate. But many of us do not remember when Bhagat Singh was born, because that is not celebrated. And what is not celebrated, history forgets. It is so important that we celebrate this Ram Navami, not just by its rituals, but by the study and by the living of Sri Rama's principles, what Sri Rama showed to us. And that path which Sri Rama walked and showed to us is Rama's Ayana, or the goal that Sri Rama showed, and that is Ramayana. And thus Rama and Ramayana are not two different things. They are the ideals that we live in our lives. I especially thank Dr. Subramanian Swamy ji and Pujya Swami Ramakrishnanand ji, who are here to enlighten us on the greatness and the glory of Sri Rama and the message that the great Ramayana has to give to all of us. Leadership and living as an individual person, both are perspectives that in a society, all of us have to. So we have Subramanian Swamy ji talking to us about Sri Rama as an ideal leader. He himself is a great leader and has held such great positions. And who better than Subramanian Swamy ji to speak to us about the great ideal? And who better than Swami Ramakrishnanand ji, who not only studied Valmiki Ramayana, but has studied Kamba Ramayana also, to tell us about that facets of Sri Rama that will be most applicable to everyone's life. I'm looking forward to a great enlightening session. Thank you very much for being here. My pranams to all of you. Hari Om.
What is celebrated, only that is remembered. Sri Rama lives in every mind and soul of our nation. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you for the words of wisdom. Thanks a lot. You spoke a lot about leadership, about our culture, and how we all should be. So, Ramayana pati pesanu appadinaka கரெக்டான பர்சன்ஸ் தான் பேசணும், ஆத்தரைஸ்ட் ஆத்தென்டிக்கான பர்சன்ஸ் தான் பேசணும். ஸோ சுவாமிஜி சொன்ன மாதிரி டாக்டர் சுப்பிரமணிய சுவாமி இங்க இருக்காரு. இஸ் ஆல்ரெடி அ கிரேட் லீடர். அண்ட் அவர் முன்னாடி நம்ம எல்லாரும் இருக்கோம் இங்க ஜூம்ல. we're all together. It's a great blessing only. So we're looking forward for Swamiji's talk. Next, now I would like to introduce Ms. Chandalekha ji. She is a former IAS officer, eminent social activist, and now one of the pillars of Virat, Hindustan Sangam. We request you, ma'am, to please address this.
Namaste. My pranams to Pujya Swamiji Ramakrishnanandaji and Anukulandaji, and my pranams to my guru and mentor, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. Namaste. VHS is very happy to hold this program in collaboration with the Chinmaya mission on the eve of Sri Rama Navami. I would like to say a few words about Virat Hindustan Sangam, why it has been created by Dr. Swamy. This is an organization that Dr. Swamy felt there was a need for, because he thought the educated youth of India don't understand our culture. They don't have a knowledge of the true history of India and what a great land we have been and what a great culture we have. So, and also how they have to balance in their life the material and the spiritual aspects of their life, so that they can lead a very peaceful and a fulfilling life. And another important goal of this organization is Dr. Swamy has always felt that Sri Rama was an ideal king, and a Rama Rajya should be the goal of governance for this country. Dr. Swamy has played a very major role in promoting and preserving our Sanatana Dharma. First, he saved the Chidambaram temple from going into the hands of the government. And even today, he is having cases in the Supreme Court to prevent the government from taking over the Hindu temples when it does not apply to the place of worship of other religions. Why should the Hindu temples be taken over? And he has been responsible for saving Rama Setu, the great Setu which was built by Rama from Dhanushkodi to Sri Lanka. But for him, it would have been destroyed for shipping canal to be built. And thirdly, it is due to his initiative, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the Rama Janmabhoomi case on a day-to-day basis. And we got the historical judgment thanks to Dr. Swamy. So we are all very keen to listen to Dr. Swamy. I just want to say a few words about what I think about the Sri Rama as a great role model for all of us. See, he lived a very simple life. Though he was a king, he lived a very simple life. He went through a lot of difficulties in his life, much more than what probably we all face in our life. Though he loved his wife dearly, he had to give up his wife, and his wife was pregnant when he banished her. So he had to give up his children also, all because he felt that when the people of his Ayodhya felt that they were feeling bad about Sita, that he had to give her up, though he never suspected her even for a moment. Today, we say we are a democracy and we give respect to the feelings of people. But what do? We have a dynastic politics, and we bring in all our family members to positions of power. But when he was a king and it was a monarchy, he still respected the feelings of the people. Not only Sita, he gave up Lakshman also. That towards the end of his reign, when the time had come for him to leave, and when Durvasa was wanting to enter the chamber, when Rama and I think Kala were having a secret talk, and the penalty for intruding was death, and Lakshmana entered, and Rama was very strict. He didn't show any leniency. He said, yes, Lakshmana, you have to face your punishment. And Lakshmana was banished from the country. So we learned so much from him, that how to live your life, that is very important. He maintained his equanimity in the face of many difficulties. And that is the great lesson that we learned from him. See, even today, I feel when we celebrate Ramanavami, what is the naivedyam we make for him? Such a simple naivedyam. We only give him uncooked food. We now don't even make a payasam. We only give him some panagam, which is just some jaggery put into water with some lime juice and some ginger, and also some sprouted dal. That is all we give him as even as a naivedyam. Such a simple man. He lived a life like a common man, and he's a great role model. And I hope that all of us will imbibe all those qualities in us and make our country a great country. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing a lot of information and talk on Ramayana. Now, getting to the main part of the program, let's invite Dr. Subramanian Swamy. Any introduction will not do justice to his defining accomplishments. Chandralekha ji has already introduced Swamy, but still it's our honor and privilege to introduce you, Swamy. So today, we will welcome him simply with his biggest contribution to mankind itself, as the key figure behind the Ram Mandir. It was Dr. Subramanian Swamy who took the issue to Supreme Court, demanding a day-to-day hearing. He brought out the historical facts before the Supreme Court. For today's generation, he conveys the science and pride of being a Hindu and what is Sanatana Dharma. We are very honored and proud to have you, sir. Requesting you, sir, to please address us.
நான் முதல்ல தமிழ்ல பேசலான்னு முடிவு பண்ணியிருந்தேன். ஆனா பல இடத்துல இருந்து வடநாட்டில் வெளியூர்லேருந்து வெடிக்கோல் வந்தது. நான் வந்து இங்கிலீஷில் பேச வேண்டும். அவளுக்கும் வந்து ராமர் பற்றி இந்த இந்த டைமென்ஷன், இந்த லீடர்ஷிப்னு சொல்கிறாலே அதை பற்றி எங்களுக்கு ஒன்றுமே தெரியாது. அதனால நீங்கள் கட்டாயமாக இங்கிலீஷில் பேசணும்னு சொன்னதுக்கு காரணம், உங்களோட அனுமதியோடு நான் இங்கிலீஷில் இன்னைக்கு என்னோட வாக்கை வந்து சொல்ல விரும்புகிறேன். Most of what I am going to say, and first of all, I'll begin by my salutation and pranams to Swami Chinmaya. In 1985, after Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, we all lost the election, and I went back to teach at Harvard. And Swami Chinmaya had come to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is just neighbor of Harvard. And he was to address a meeting, and he told the students, go find Swami and bring him here. So that's how I first time met him. And he told me that, what are you doing here? You should be back in India. I said, yeah, I came because we lost an election, so I wanted a little rest. And I'll be going back soon, the end of this year. So he said, very good, because India is on the verge of a Hindu revolution. I was taken aback. I said, the whole country is talking about secularism. He said, secularism is also part of Hinduism. It can be, the Western concept we don't have to take, but we believe all religions lead to God. And that is secularism. So this oneness of the Hindu has to be cultivated. And that's how I developed an interest to see who are our gods who have tried to unite the whole of India. Genetically, we are all one. Because of DNA studies show that all our DNA is the same. But unfortunately, the British have put it in history and converted a regional concept of Dravidian into a racial concept. In fact, the word Dravidian was coined by Adi Shankara when he went to debate in Bihar, Mandana Mishra. And when the question was asked before the debate, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Dravida. And so this complete destruction of our history has made us to feel that we are different people, when in fact science says we are one people. And even of our languages, you see, they have so many common words. I had a quarrel once with Karunanidhi about the Hindi matter. And he said, Tamil is a separate language. I said, well, maybe a separate language, but it has many Sanskrit words. He said, what? There's not one Sanskrit word. I said, your name is a Sanskrit word, Karuna and Nidhi. And that stopped him. But I would say that this whole idea of having a seminar and a online presentation about Lord Rama is really about the unity of India. He started from north, went to the west, from Nasik, where Sita was kidnapped. He went to Karnataka. From Karnataka, he went to Tamil Nadu and then crossed into Sri Lanka. So all along the way, what he says to Lakshmana, what he says to other people, all shows his concept that we are one India. And therefore, to talk about his leadership qualities, it gives me a great pleasure. I've done some research. I am not a scholar in Hindu studies or Hindu ancient studies, but whatever I have read on the matter, I've put it in words which can be easily understood. And I've relied on Valmiki. I've relied some papers which have been published in various journals. and come to the conclusion that Rama, according to Valmiki himself, had 16 gunas. Incidentally, I may at this stage make a comment on Ms. Chandralekha's remark that Rama banished Sita to the forest. That is not what is there in Valmiki Ramayana. What is there in Valmiki Ramayana is that when Rama brought Sita from Bihar to Ayodhya, he said, I will give you one, which is our custom to give a present when you enter our palace for the first time, which is now going to be your home. And my present to you is that I will never look at another woman. Many of the kings, my father, everybody has many wives, but I will have only one, and that is you and nobody else. And so she gave a promise that if you ever, because of something I have done or not done, but been accused of doing in the future, taints your administration or makes you unhappy, I will insist on leaving and I will go away and be a sannyasi. So in that promise, she went despite Rama trying to stop her. But if he really wanted her to go, he wouldn't be putting her statue next to him in the throne. He would not sleep on the floor because Sita is not there. So all the indications are there, and I think this should be researched and corrected, because this is one of the things that is used against Lord Rama. Let's see how he treated a woman. Same thing with that Agni Pariksha after winning the war in Lanka. Rama wanted her to do Agni Pariksha because, according to Valmiki Ramayana, before being abducted by Ravana, Rama performed a puja of Agni, and Agni Devta came and took Sita away and left what was called as a Chaya Sita. That is, the Sita that was taken was not the original Sita. And so he had to perform the same function to make sure that the Sita that is coming is the original Sita, and that's why he made her go through that. So these many interpretations need to be given, but I'm going far afield. Let me come back to the main subject of leadership. According to Valmiki Ramayana, there are 16 gunas that make Rama a unique leader of the human race. And of course, in particular, the Hindus. And of those 16, after studying it, I came to the conclusion for this lecture, I should concentrate on 8 of them. So these are called Kalyana Gunas in Valmiki Ramayana. That is, these are what we would translate roughly into English as transformational characteristics. Rama was a transformational leader. He was not a king alone, but he transformed. The people who came to contact with him, they became different individuals after listening to him. And there are many, many examples. His appealing to high ideals and to strive to achieve them, and the moral values that he propounded, including apad dharma, which I'll explain in a minute what that is, where these moral values can be suspended. And he did suspend it in one particular case, which I'll come to in my course of my talk. So therefore, with these 8, Sri Rama had an enormous skill of influencing people, motivating people to achieve a common goal. That is the first requirement of a leader. And that is what we call as Saushilyam Gunavan. That is, he had the characteristics of bringing people to his point of view. And that is the first guna that he had, because he would step down to the lowest level. He would sit with Sabari. He would encourage the monkey, that is Hanuman. He would there was not a single. When he went to Chitrakoot, he saw the backward classes, almost the tribals there, and he fired their imagination. And the leader of the tribal was waiting for him to return on his way, because he promised on the way back he would stop, and he was waiting for the day when Rama would return. That was the way he brought people onto his into his way of thinking and becoming purposeful in the goal. So this is something very noble quality. And you may remember that when the Rama bridge was being built, which is, Nala built it, and somewhere the name got changed to Adam's Bridge, because Adams walked on it. That means there was already a bridge on which Adams walked. So how can you name it after Adams? It was ridiculous. In the Supreme Court, when I was arguing for saving Ram Setu from the Setu Samudram ship channel project, one of the judges was named Ravindra, and he said, "Dr. Swamy, what are you saying? You're wanting us to scrap a development project for a matter which is in the middle of the ocean. How many people will go to the middle of the ocean to worship Rama or Ram Setu there?" So I told him, every morning I do Surya Namaskar, but I don't go to Surya and come back. So it's not necessary that I have to go to a place in order to do puja. I can do it even if it is out of my this thing. So I am saying these misconceptions and these doubts which people create, these are some of the things we'll have to address. So now, when Rama met this, when the squirrels came and said, "We also want to participate," with small pebbles. So he blessed them and he put his 3 fingers on it, and that's why these squirrels all have these 3 black lines on the back of their body. So it was right from the smallest to the biggest. Rama had a way of incorporating, co-opting people, and that's the great leadership which we need today. In today's age of divisions, we need people to have a point of view, but to be able to persuade and bring people to your point of view. And that requires a great deal of patience and a reputation that you are fair-minded. And everybody knew that Rama was a very, very fair-minded person. Then similarly, when you don't know your own strength, Rama would tell him, or that person, that you have this strength. Hanuman never knew how much strength he had, because he was cursed by Surya for having played with him, with Surya, and made Surya angry. So he was a man of enormous capability, but he did not know. Somebody had to tell him, you can fly, you can fight, you can. So Rama was the one who motivated Hanuman to go to Lanka. And he said, you can fly. There's no difficulty at all. So this ability to recognize the potential in a person and then instill that confidence that according to this potential you can do much more than you're doing is the first guna of leadership which Rama had, which we call as Saushiliam Gunavan. The second is Virayavan, that is in a sense of firmness, determined leadership. Rama had valor. He never insulted anybody when it was absolutely not necessary. He gave due importance. Even after killing Bali, he gave due importance to Bali's son, and in fact made him his dut to Lanka. And all along the way, you can see that Rama had this capacity to make people self-confident. So this is a quality of leadership which you need. Nowadays, leaderships are by putting other people down. If he comes up, then I have competition. So defame him, do this, put out fake ID tweets, all that kind of thing, you see. That goes on. Not that I can prove that I can do better than what you can do, but by saying you can't do anything, or that you should be ignored, you should be sidelined, you should be. It's common across the parties. I'm not naming any party with this, but I've seen it in politics. Look at what happened to Subhash Chandra Bose. I mean, he was the man who frightened the British to leave India, and he never got his due. Sardar Patel, who brought in more than 550 kingdoms and made it into one India. Otherwise, we would have been a mothball country. And he did not get his Bharat Ratna till I became a minister and Chandrasekhar became prime minister. And when I was asked by Chandrasekhar, because I had also held the law portfolio, to see who should get Bharat Ratna, so I said, let me see who has not been given. And I was shocked to find that Sardar Patel had not been given, even though his name has been proposed many times. But Mr. Nehru and later on Indira Gandhi struck his name out. So here is a man who is the builder of modern India, who is sometimes compared with Bismarck in Germany. And he was ignored till very recently. Now, of course, there are a lot of statues about Sardar Patel and so on. But the fact is that in our country, this is one of the malaise which we have to overcome and learn from Rama. He recognized the gunas of everybody. And according to that, he promoted them. So when you become a person of valor, Rama never hesitated taking any risk, nor did he vacillate. He was decisive. He protected his team members. Anytime there was a despondency, he encouraged people. And there's plenty of examples in Ramayana about this. He never blamed others for anything that happened to him. And he never stole anybody's credit, which is now a common problem in India today. He was the one who would give the credit and he would praise that person. And there are many examples which I'll mention of these kinds of things put together. Then the third one is Dharma Jnanam, the resolve to protect and live by Dharma. That Rama remained. But when Dharma itself was in danger, or that in order to achieve Dharma, Adharma was standing in the way, he did not hesitate. Take the case of Bali. Rama hid behind a tree, made Sugriv wear a mala so that he could be distinguished between two monkeys, and then killed him by sending his arrow, hiding behind the tree. And when Bali was dying, he said to Rama, "You hid behind a tree, you call yourself a Kshatriya, and you killed me this way. If I had come face to face and you killed me in battle, I would have sung all my way to God. But here you have done something which is niche, which is un-Kshatriya-like." So then Rama says, remember that morality is only between two moral individuals. It cannot be for those who have no respect for morals. You stole Sugriv's wife, you stole his kingdom, you have engaged in enormous amount of brutality. You don't deserve any morality. And so whichever way you are killed is morally correct. And so he defines what later on you see in Mahabharata is called as apadharma. And this apadharma shows that what a great strategist Rama was and how he could choose situations according to their need. So I would say then that, but I'll also give you another example. Ravana once in his excitement, when Rama came and he said to all his courtiers, "What, this man looking like a helpless Brahmin dressed in dhoti, bare-bodied with one bow arrow. I don't need any army. I'm going into the battle." And he sat in his chariot and came out. And Rama then step by step broke off the wheel, cut Ravan's arms, and Ravan was literally left without anything. And finally the chariot collapsed under the blows of Rama. And then Rama said, I can kill you, but you get up and go get again properly dressed and come with full preparation with your army. Then I will feel that it is deserving of fighting with you, but not in this pathetic state. So here is an example where he could have gone an easy victory, but he chose that there is a dharma and that he should not hit him when they are unequally placed. So like this, you will find other examples. Then the question comes that what is the fourth guna that Rama has of leadership? That is called Krityagyanam. Krityagyanam. That is, Rama was always thankful and grateful for the smallest contribution made to him, however little. He never hesitated. I already given you the example of the squirrel. Even though Vibhishana came to surrender before him and he was at his mercy, and Lakshmana was very unhappy that this man has come as a spy. He will sabotage us from inside. Nevertheless, what did he do? He immediately coronated him as the next king of Lanka, to make it clear that he has come only to rescue Sita. He has not come for the purpose of annexing a kingdom. And therefore, the people of Lanka should know that this fight has got nothing to do except one issue on which even Brahmana's family was divided. Even his wife Mandodari was against his keeping Sita in captivity. So therefore, in order to make that clear, even though the battle was had hardly begun, he coronated with full ceremony Vibhishana as the king of Lanka. So this shows that his large-heartedness. He could have made Lanka into his own colony, and he could have used slaves, the Lankan people as slaves. But instead of that, he showed his nobility and showed that I have come for only one purpose, and I'm not going to look beyond that. That is demonstrated by this. Again, you see, we have the situation where which is called Drud Varataraha, a single pointedness in achieving a goal. This is what Arjuna, when he had pulled his arrow to kill a bird in the part of the competition before graduation in Drona's school. Drona asked him, "What do you see?" He says, "I see the iris of the eye of the bird and nothing else." So then Drona said, "Now you are qualified. Okay, now kill the bird." So the single pointed focus when you enter into a project, not thinking of this, thinking of that, is there a room for retreat? Nothing. This is the goal. This has to be achieved. It is dharmic to achieve it. And you focus your entire energy on that. And this is what we found when Rama went towards from Rameshwaram to Dhanushkodi. And as you know that the Rameshwaram island, which used to be called the Pamban Island, but since my Supreme Court cases started being called Rameshwaram Island, like Ram Setu used to be called Adams Bridge, but after my Supreme Court case, now everybody says Ram Setu. So Rama went to Dhanushkodi, and there he faced the ocean. So everybody said, "Now what will we do? How will we go?" So he said, "Let me pray to Samudra Raja." So he sat for full 3 days doing tapasya, doing mantras and so on, praying for Samudra Raja to come and help him part the waves so they can walk across. And what do you think happened? Samudra Raja ignored him. So Rama, what did he do? He picked up his arrow, the Agni Ban, and decided to dry up the whole Gulf of Mannar, as it's called, so that he can walk across. It is then the Samudra Raja came up and said, please don't do it for my foolishness. There are so many jivis in the ocean. They'll all die. For my sake, please don't do it. You want to go across? I will tell you that in the bottom terrain of the ocean, that is the Gulf of Mannar, there is a ridge, and in that ridge, if you can bring those rocks which are there in the coast of Tamil Nadu and put it with the help of clay, then you can build a pathway. So that's how the building started. But as you know, that which is even true today, which I have seen myself, when the Vanar Sena went to bring these rocks, they were not rocks. They were what were called as corals, which is fused bones of fishes, shells, and all that. That when Hanuman placed it on the clay and the ridge, it started floating. Even today, if you go there and take out one of these corals from Ram Setu, you will see it will float. In fact, the Vishwa Parishad made a glass box with water and put one rock and took it all over the country to show this. That exactly as it said in Ramayana, it is true in real life. And then after that, 3 former directors of the Geological Survey of India did a research study, and that said that corals cannot be created in the middle of the ocean. It can only be created on the coast. And so when you find corals in the middle of the ocean paving the way for Ram Setu, they have been brought there by somebody. Of course, these being scientists, they said, we will not dare to say in this secular world that this is brought by Rama's army, or the Hanuman or Nala brought it. But we say it is brought, it's man-made. And now, of course, everybody accepts that it is man-made. And who could have made it? There's only one for whom we have a description, and that is Lord Rama and his army. And they built this. So now that was the determination of Rama, that I will make a crossing. I have come for Sita, I'm not going to go back. And he found that by making prayers, it didn't work. Then he said, I will show you my Krodh. And he took out this Agni Ban. And then, of course, the king of the ocean, the Samudra Raja, got frightened, and he showed him the way. And what is Ram Setu is not a series of corals being put in. There is a ridge already. And that on that ridge, they put clay and put these things. So they became above the water and you could walk on it. And that is the position even today. So this is an example where where Rama got the Ram Setu and walked across, defeated Ravan, and immediately did Abhishek for Ravan's brother, and then after Vibhishana became king, he said, now I have to go back immediately because I have promised the Adivasis in Chitrakoot that I'll come on such and such day, and that is now just one day away. And I told my brother Bharat, I'll come back exactly before 14 years is over. And his brother Bharat said, if you don't come even by one day late, I would have committed suicide. So remember that. So to keep that, fortunately, Vibhishana said, we have got Pushpak Viman, which Raman used for abducting Sita. So that I will accompany you. And that's how they went back. And they stopped on the way in Chitrakoot. And then afterwards, they went to Ayodhya in time and then was coronated. So this question that to achieve an objective, you find a numerous number of ways, whichever comes, don't give up pursuing that objective. That is a lesson we need. Sixth guna of Rama, which I think is worth bringing out, and I got 6, 7, and 8. That is 3 of them. They're not very long, so I'll conclude within my time. And that is Rama was a great jnani. This is what the 6th guna for leader is called Vidvan, Vidvita. So Rama was a jnani, and he explained many issues to Lakshman, for example. I mean, many other people also. But with Lakshman, he was constantly having arguments. And he was explaining. For instance, Lakshman said, how can we fight Ravan with all these bandars, I mean these monkeys? Why don't you send a messenger to Ayodhya and ask your brother, our brother, to send the Ayodhya army, which is the finest army which had defeated Ravan already about 3 times when Ravan came to Ayodhya, and said, why don't we have that army? So Rama then tells him, do you know if that army comes here, they will have to be fed. Who's going to feed them? The same people here who are here, whom you call as monkeys. What will they feel? That we don't have any respect for them. So it's better to lose a war than to have this kind of thing. So I will not agree to that. We have to have faith in them and see that they are inspired to go and fight. So this is something which Rama, as a jnani, used to do. He used to explain. He never insisted on it. And then again, this problem happened with Lakshman. When after winning the war, Rama, at that time, Lakshman didn't know what mood Bharat was. And he told Rama, you see, we don't know what will be the attitude of Bharat when you return. Usually people, when they become kings, they won't give, they won't vacate. So why bother to go? This is at that time, you see, before Ravan, there was Kuber. Kuber had made Sri Lanka into a paradise. So he said, this paradise, why don't we live here? Sita is already here. You and I are here. I'll have my wife brought over, and then we can live here as kings without any problem. Why take the risk of going back and then find that we have to fight our own brother? So Rama then gives that famous thing, which is quoted very, very often, that nothing is more beautiful than motherland. Even heaven cannot compare with motherland. So never, never leave your motherland. And this is what, is a very famous sloka, which is produced in many places. It is Rama's own sentences which are that. So now the 7th guna of Rama was what we call as samartaha, which is called a strong will and steady on decisions made. In Chitrakoot, when Sita's father, Janak, heard that his daughter has gone barefooted in the forest, he came running. Then Kaikeyi also felt very bad, so she also came, and the other Ranis came. Of course, his mother didn't come, Rama's mother didn't come, and a lot of other scholars and all came, and they started pleading with Rama, please return. Kaikeyi said, I will do prayashchit. I made a mistake, please forgive me. And she wept and wept. And Rama said, no, this is a commitment I made when my father mentioned it to me. And I will, and he passed away. And I will keep that commitment. I'm not going to change. And then they had what is called as Shastrat. That is, a jury was created. And there was an argument. Janak on one side and Rama on the other side. And Valmiki describes it in detail, Vadam and Prativadam, so to speak. And in the end, Rama is declared winner. And then he continues. Now, this is what a Vidwan will do. he will first try to argue and try to bring you around by arguments. Of course, if it doesn't work, then of course the other alternatives are there. And he has shown that in other places. So a leader must not only be a vidwan, but he must be also a teacher. It's not enough to have knowledge and sit at home, or teach classes. You must be teacher for the society and use your knowledge for it. This was Rama did throughout. He explained even during the Ram Rajya, and then there on some of the parts which are, I don't know whether they come from Valmiki or not, but when he took Love and Kush around the country after Sita parted away, he taught them Rajatantra, Rajadharma, and so on. So those have to be extricated now and made as part of our reading. But he did not waver. Rama never wavered. 14 years we have to give up. When everybody is saying, come back, why shouldn't I listen to them? He never wavered. He said, this is a commitment I have to do. Maybe in his mind, he knew that this was his mission to kill Ravana. And there's only one way, and that is by going into the forest. I don't know, but the fact is that he was that strong will. He was not, he was a person of great persuasive powers, never lost his temper and so on. But at the same time, he was, once a decision is made, he's stuck with it. Finally, there is something, a guna called Priya Darshana Aha. So that is where Rama explains many times to Lakshman, argue pleasantly, have a smiling face, don't get hot, don't get angry, don't get upset if the other person is being unreasonable, but pleasantly do it. If it doesn't work, you just part, but be pleasant, and you will see that you will win more often than you will lose an argument. And this he has in a number of places told Lakshman. So this is another quality of Rama. So these 8 qualities of the 16 there, I think are the things that should be taught in a leadership course as to what Rama held dear for leadership. And this is what I wanted to say. I thank you for this great opportunity to come. அடுத்த வாட்டி தமிழ்ல பேசுறதுக்காக நான் ஒரு தீர்மானம் போடுறேன். ஆனா இன்னைக்கு பல நாட்டுல இருந்து எல்லாரும் எனக்கு டெலிஃபோனும் பண்ணியிருக்கார்கள். இங்கிலீஷ்ல பேச வேண்டும், எங்களுக்கு புரிய வேண்டும். வடநாட்டுல இருந்தும் சில பேர் ஹிந்தியில பேசுவோம். நான் சொன்னேன் அது முடியாது, தமிழ்நாட்டுல போய் நான் இதுக்காக ஹிந்தியில பேசணும். ஒரு காலத்துல சன்ஸ்கிருத் வந்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் எல்லாரும் நம்ம ஒரே மொழியில இன்டர்ஸ்டேட் பேசலாம். ஏன்னா சன்ஸ்கிருத்தோட அந்த சப்தாவளி எல்லாம் எல்லா மொழிலையும் இருக்கு. தமிழ்லையும் நீங்க டிக்ஷனரி பார்த்தீங்கன்னா 40% வேர்ட்ஸ் இருக்கேன், அது சன்ஸ்கிருத்ல இருந்து தான் வந்திருக்கு. கருணாநிதி ஒரு வாட்டி நான் சொன்னேன், இது எல்லாம் 90 டிக்ஷனரி கொண்டு வாங்க பாருங்க, 40%. இல்லை அதெல்லாம் சன்ஸ்கிருத் தமிழ்ல இருந்து திருட்டு பண்ணினது. Anyway, Anna both have common, that is enough. Similarly, Devanagari script and you compare Tamil script, they're same. I mean, the principle is the same. Ka is like that in Tamil, and you want ki, you put a matra, you want ku, you put one under it. Same thing in English, in Hindi or Sanskrit, excuse me, Devanagari. Devanagari is used by Hindi, it is used by Marathi, it's used by Nepali, and of course, it's a Sanskrit. So this script should now be made as an additional script for the whole of India, according to me. Then we can have, railway station. When people go and put black paint on railway station board saying this is Hindi, they don't know, they are ignorant people, because that is not Hindi. That is Devanagari script. Devanagari script is used by many languages. And today, the IT cell in NASA says that the most scientific script is Devanagari. And for artificial intelligence, the most appropriate language is Sanskrit. You can go to Google and type it and you will get it. All the publications which say Sanskrit is the future for artificial intelligence. So in our country, we must benefit from the fact that we have such a large number of Sanskrit words in Tamil, and slowly learn enough so that the whole country can be connected by one language, which is called Sanskrit. And then, of course, reading Ramayana and Mahabharata in Sanskrit will be a great joy. And with this, I thank Chinmaya and the mission for the opportunity to come and speak here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your divine talk on the amazing. Thank you, sir, for your divine talk on the amazing leadership qualities of Lord Rama and all the illustrated stories. Thank you once again, Swami, for your most valuable talk. Thank you, Swami. Now, I would like to introduce Gautami ma'am, founder of Life Again Foundation, an artist. Ma'am பத்தி சொல்லணும்னா ரொம்ப அன்பானவங்க. அவங்களோட இன்னொரு பேரே கருணா அப்படின்னு சொல்லலாம். கேன்சர் சர்வைவர், ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ராங்கான ஒரு பர்சன் மற்றும் சமூக சேவகர். Ma'am, we request you to please share a few words.
With her permission, can I leave? I have another issue to deal with. Unless you say no, you can't leave, I'll stay. But I have another commitment. So I will get a tape of your speech and listen to it later.
Okay? Certainly, Doctor. It's been a pleasure to hear you speak.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to the pleasure of hearing you on tape. Bye.
Thank you so much, Swami.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
So, good to go?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. First of all,